These are incredible.
Say the clarity and the color on them are fantastic.
Where are you and where's Joyce?
There's Joyce, myself, and my baby brother Steve. My name is Bruce Lepage, and Joyce Lepage was my next older sister.
Tell me about Joyce. What kind of a sister was she to you, and what kind of a young woman was she?
Well, Joyce, a very wholesome lady, had a lot of fun. She had bicycled all over the area and traveled around. She loved to dress nicely, and I think it made my mom a little bit mad that Joyce's budget for clothing was probably a little higher than it should have been. Let's see what we got here. Now here, this is kind of a cute picture. We didn't have a swimming pool, so we just jump in the canal.
What memory or thought comes to mind when you think about your sister?
Just playing together and working together. 54 years now that she's been gone, and of course that's a lifetime. Yeah, she was a special person. She had no enemies, it was all friends. And this is the photo of Joyce getting ready to go off to college. Everything kind of flipped completely, the world turned over.
In the summer of 1971, she is attending summer school, and she lives in Pullman, up on campus, and she goes missing. My name is Brett Myers. I'm the sheriff of Whitman County. The information originally starts out, Joyce, for all investigators knew, was either off on a camping trip, off to the boat races, or just not answering the phone.
Who reported her missing initially?
So initially, her father reports her missing. They expect her home that weekend. They don't hear from her.
She just never showed up. So after about 10 days, that's when I believe he called the campus police.
When she is reported missing and the investigators start putting some of those pieces of evidence together, I think they take it very seriously. You have a young woman, no one's heard from her. Her car is there. They find a purse and some other belongings in her car. Her apartment is undisturbed. There's no indication that she packed and went anywhere. So they take it very seriously, and they start talking to everyone she knew. They're looking at every detail, and they're very concerned. So I think they know something isn't right. They don't have a real crime scene of any kind. They don't have anyone that witnessed her being abducted. They don't have anyone that says, oh, we saw her in a fight with this person the night before. None of those things. And so what we just kind of almost have is a situation where she goes missing, falls off the face of the earth. At the same time, she's a missing person, which that report doesn't come in for several days after she goes missing. Washington State University police officers are investigating dormitory living area, Stevens Hall, that has experienced some vandalism. It's also being renovated, but there's a piece of carpet that is missing, and that gets called in on the morning of July 23rd, 1971.
We're on top of campus at WSU. This is the building, Stevens Hall. It just brings back the memories of Joyce.
This is Stevens Hall. It was closed back when Joyce was a student here. Often she would sneak in, sometimes to play the piano, sometimes to study, maybe just have an evening for herself. It's also where detectives believe she was last seen alive.
We know that Joyce at times would go to that very location and she would spend the night there. She was more comfortable, I think, spending the night there than she was sometimes in her own apartment. And again, that's another interesting facet of the investigation. Like, she's got an apartment 3 blocks away, yet she's choosing to spend the night in Stevens Hall, which is under renovation, kind of in a common area of Stevens Hall, but they find her belongings there. So that's another interesting thing. Like, why is this missing young woman's belongings here, and why do we have a piece of missing carpet?
At the time, when your sister was reported missing and she didn't show up, were you initially worried, or when did that worry start to settle in?
We knew there was something serious going on.
In April, body is discovered in Hawaii Canyon, about 10 to 12 miles outside of Pullman, down in a ravine where there's a seasonal creek bed. As luck would have it, we don't really have a lot of people that go hunting garnets in the creek bed in the Hawaii Canyon and at the exact spot, but there happens to be some people that are down in a canyon area, they're in a creek looking for garnets, and they stumble across what they believe looks like human skeletal remains. Those remains are wrapped up in a couple of blankets and in a piece of carpet that matches the piece of carpet missing from Washington State University.
Well, we'd kind of suspected she wasn't alive anyways. It was just a relief, I think more than anything. We could have a funeral for her.
How did she die? Do we have that answer?
I really don't think we do. If this is somewhat of a crime of passion, you would anticipate or expect there to be some sort of scene of struggle, and there wasn't.
And Joyce's apparently was probably stabbed to death because of the FBI went ahead and saw what appeared to be knife marks in her rib area. The thought is that that's what happened, but then what's strange is that if she was killed there in Stevens Hall, there was no evidence that showed up. No blood. You'd expect if she was stabbed to death there in the room, there'd be blood all over the place. But Joyce's body was wrapped in a family blanket and apparently 2 army blankets and the carpet piece out of Stevens Hall. Whoever would do that took the time to go ahead and wrap her up and take her about 10 or 12 miles away from the campus into an area that you would pretty well have to know where you were at.
It was just a pretty unfortunate, body dump case. She was pushed down the side of this gully. I highly doubt that this individual actually hiked down there. And it's very steep. It is very steep, and climbing out of there, really, really hard.
Joyce's murder has kind of brought people from all different paths together to see if we can find out what actually happened.
This is Joyce Lepage's page on my website where I share all of her information and how the research is still currently going on. My name is Olivia Harnack, and I am the managing editor of the Lincoln County Record-Times. And I am tied to Joyce's case because when I was 19, I took on her case for a school project, which ended up turning me into part-time investigative reporter. As I've spent countless hours at the Whitman County Sheriff's Office, so much so that the Sheriff Brett Myers used to joke that I had my own office there, where I'd walk into the office and they'd say, you're gonna solve it today. And I'd say, God, I hope so.
Olivia's a whole nother generation or two removed, but yet she still has a passion about this case.
The detectives who had worked on this case from 1972 when her body is found up until, Sheriff Brett Myers picks up the case, they were very, very big on documenting everything. Her cold case file is not a file. She has a box, a huge box, and it's actually 2 boxes. And it is a bunch of binders.
This is book 1 of 3. Interestingly enough, this particular suspect is deceased at this point.
The 39-year-old Bundy, once one of the nation's most hunted fugitives.
Of course, then you jump to the side and you got Ted Bundy.
Bundy is accused of murdering 2 women and attacking 3 others.
If you look at his profile of who he would attack and kill, Joyce's fits right in there.
Ted Bundy's an easy target. He's dead now, he can't talk, so we could just say, hey, it was Ted Bundy. A lot of what Ted Bundy did, it fits his MO. I mean, she fit the type. There's a lot of documentation in here, and we don't really have anything in these cases that really put Ted Bundy here. He was active in the area. When I say the area, like Washington State, Idaho, Utah, but we don't have anything that ever places him really to speak of. When he was interviewed with his attorney and with other people, he was asked to essentially indicate all the places he had committed those crimes. And Pullman, Washington was never one of those places. That doesn't mean he came clean on everything either. I think investigators still believe that there's probably other murders that he was responsible for.
In terms of him potentially being that person. I can't say he didn't do it, but the MO and just the way her body was disposed of tells me otherwise. I don't think that would have been Bundy. I don't.
Serial killer Ted Bundy was executed Tuesday in Florida's electric chair.
I think this person knew her. I think that she was probably murdered in the dormitory on WSU campus because the carpet was cut out, likely with a box cutter. Had to have been there. Had to have been there. And this person had to have known that she was going to be there.
We really want to solve this case.
Well, I've been interviewed like this many times before, and some people say, why do you even bother? You know, but my thought is that any information that goes out is good information, because it just maybe will rattle someone's mind that might know some information on what happened, or the individual that did this deed, maybe they would step up at some point and do the right thing and confess. You know, not much chance of that, but there is some chance. And then also just so that people that are aware that there's dangers out there, and just to be cautious in their own lives.
When I think about Joyce, I think about the lasting impact that she's had. I do think somebody is responsible for what happened to her, and somebody definitely tried to hide her remains. What keeps me up at night is just like the why factor. You know, like at this point, if they are still living, they think that it's going to get swept under the rug, and they think they're going to get away with it, and it's just not going to happen. You know, people still care about Joyce. I care about Joyce. I didn't even personally know her. But the biggest thing right now is just trying to get some resolution on this case, to get something moving. You know, Bruce has a reward. It's like $100,000, and it's split for probable cause and an arrest, which is huge. I'd really, really like to see some resolution to this, some closure to this. Very determined to stick with it.
So you got to keep hope up, and maybe a miracle will happen. This is a swing bench that I had built for my sister. I wanted to do something in her honor, and I wanted it to be down here by the river. Joyce was intending to come to the water follies races. The weekend she disappeared. This is a little memorial to that. We all know she's in a great place right now, so. In loving memory of Joyce Lepage, a beautiful soul taken too soon.